All right, I'm going to go ahead and get it started. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today for our fourth quarter Ministry Advisory Council. And I just want to thank all of you for attending. And for those that watching on recording, thank you for watching the recording here. A little bit about Ministry Advisory Council. This is set up really for us to give value back to our members and really for us to be able to feed into them. And it's our heart to serve ministries. And we're trying to find those that have the same heart. And here we have a speaker today in Kacie that we will be looking to hear from her. But before I get going, let's go ahead and pray and we'll get started. Father, I just thank you for this day that you've given us. I thank you for all the blessings and I thank you for all the ministries that we're able to serve. I pray for them as we go into the end of the year that they will work to serve their congregations and the people of their community, Lord. May we be there to serve them and help them through all that they go through. Father, I just thank you for this day. May we glorify you in everything we do. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, first off, I just want to talk a little about what we're doing here. We brought in Ministry Brands, and Ministry Brands, we were trying to find partners that, one, share the heart to serve ministries that we could collaborate with. And if you don't know much about Ministry Brands, this is a organization that does everything from online giving, accounting software, live streaming service, church management, donor management, communications, background screening, you name it, they do it. The great thing is this is a very good partnership for us. This is a partnership in which they've actually been able to give back to our ministries through discounts on some of their services. And we've partnered with them on many things, and we're going to partner with them on many more things as we go forward. So what I would like to do is introduce Kacie Frazier. She's going to be speaking today on connecting in a digital world. She leads the Strategic Alliance of Ministry Brands. She has a heart to serve ministries, and she is a great partner, one that we've enjoyed being partners with for over the last year. And Kacie, I just welcome you to the Ministry Advisory Council and look forward to hearing from you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you for summarizing all the things that Ministry Brands does, because we do a lot.
It's a lot.
But I do love that we have a very similar heart, which at the end of the day is to serve churches and faith-based nonprofit ministries. We do it through technology, but that ultimately is our vision, is to leverage technology so that you can meet your community's needs and fulfill your unique mission in that unique community through technology and software. So thank you.
Yeah, awesome. I look forward to hearing your topic. In regards to housekeeping, if there's any, we're going to have Q&A at the end of this. And so if you have any questions, go ahead and put it in the Q&A section or into the webinar chat, and we'll be happy to go through those at the end. But yeah, Kacie, kick it off. I look forward to hearing, and we'll be talking soon.
Thank you. I would love questions. So if I am just such a great speaker that no one has a question, then I've not done a very good job. So please, if anything does come to mind, I would love to open that or provide time at the end to do that. I'll go ahead and share my screen. And hopefully this more is to keep me on pace and keep us on time here. So let me share that. There we go. Hopefully you are seeing my screen. It looks good on my end. I'm sure Mike will unmute and tell me if I'm not sharing, but I think I am. So I'm excited to share with you a little bit about connection and communication. It is no secret that we are in a hugely tech-driven society, and that is actually causing disconnection. And we're going to talk about not just the problem, but some really practical solutions. So we are, just what we just said, becoming more and more disconnected, which is kind of ironic because we have more and more tools that are literally designed to bring us closer together than ever, even at our fingertips, on our cell phones, our computers. And yet somehow we are becoming more and more disconnected in this digital age. So kind of the question is, are we losing authentic community, especially in our churches, from behind our computer screens? So I kind of love this little image. This might be how we think we are communicating. These guys are so wholesome and pure, and it's low tech. It's a simple communication, no interruptions, clear message. Guy on the left doesn't seem super interested, but simple communication. This is what we kind of think we might be doing. when in fact, what we are actually doing might look a little bit more like this. I'm the one with the glasses, like rubbing my temples, trying to get rid of my migraine. People are talking over each other. They're confused. So this might be what our communication actually is. And then this might be how we feel. We're overloaded. We almost just want to shut out all of the noise. We also might feel a bit like this. I know I do. If I take like one day off of work, I come back and it's just overwhelming. And then ultimately, we probably all feel a little bit like this. So if we feel like this on the back end, on the ministry side, how much more do our congregants, our church members, and the people in our communities, they're also feeling this overload and the cry for help. So today's challenge is really, really simple. And I don't think this is going to be a surprise to anyone. If you do not have these problems, I would love to trade places. Like, you come, please sit in my seat and teach me. But for the most part, we do have a problem. We are so disjointed in our systems, the back-end softwares that we are using to meet the needs of our communities, to organize our data. We have too many systems. Like, I want everyone to pause for 1 second and just very quickly try to think of how many different systems you log into each day. How many passwords, how many different systems over how many different devices do you log into every day just to do your job? Our congregation, of course, is the exact same thing. So we have too many systems. Therefore, our message can get lost and our congregations become further and further separated. And I'm going to oversimplify this because it really does not have to be complicated. It really can be this simple to some degree, of course, but the solution is actually to lean into technology. I know that's weird because technology is also part of the problem, but we're going to lean into it and leverage it to simplify our message, cultivating a culture of clear communication and intentional inclusivity. That sounds really, really easy. I know it's not that easy, but the processes to get to easy really can be that simple. So I'm going to make the assumption that at least most of us agree that this is the problem or one of the problems we might be facing. And I'm going to walk us through some practical steps towards that solution. So with that, the simplest thing you're ever going to see, hopefully today at least, is to simplify the strategy. We are going to bucket this into 3 bubbles: engage, connect, and organize. And I want you to kind of think of those top 2 bubbles, engage and connect, as the congregation side. And then organize at the bottom, that's our staff. That's the internal back-end system. And this will make a little bit sense as we move forward. But again, it really is this simple at a very high level, of course. So let's talk about engage. Engage, I struggle with this because engage is a little bit of a buzzword, but it does have, it has merit. So I want to talk through this a little bit. We are going to engage by this central hub. What I would love to do, if I could get into the driver's seat of every church and look at your systems, kind of do like a triage. You know, when you go to the emergency room, the very first room is triage, where you are assessed. I would love to do that for every church that we get the honor of serving and triage the problem. More often than not, the biggest problem is there is just too many systems. So I want to help you engage with your congregation by reducing what we call your tech stack, or how many systems you have that may or may not be doing a lot of the same jobs, and you may not even realize that. So we're going to reduce our tech stack and lean to a central hub when possible. And that example here is a website or a mobile app. So over here, again, this is highly simplified, but in theory, your website should provide access to giving, check-in, people, events, records, kind of everything in one place, with possibly one back-end system doing all of that work. More often than not, I don't know who all is on here, but I would love for you to think about your system to go, man, my website is one system, my giving is a different system. We do event registration through something completely different. I'm not even sure where we manage our people. you really can do all of those things in one system. And that would be my goal for everyone if possible. And this matters because it simplifies the point of entry for the congregation. We're not talking about us yet and finding efficiencies for our staff. This is truly to simplify for those walking into our door. And that door might be digitally on an online service or through a mobile app, through a computer screen. So when I say walk into our door, please think physically and or digitally. So we really want everyone to eliminate confusion and for our message to cut through the noise. Sometimes the amount of systems we use to communicate with our congregation actually adds to the noise. We want to reduce that. And this is an example. I've linked this church website here, and I'm going to actually tell you, I don't serve this church. This is not one of our clients. I would love to, but this is a website that we did not sell them, but it's a great website. And here's why I love it. Everyone's always heard this, your website is your front door. And that's what we mean by engaging. The minute someone steps into your front door or lands on your website, what we would love to see is it's clean and consistent. The navigation is super simple. And the biggest thing here is there's familiarity across all of these pages. So you can't see everything on this site here. This is just a quick clip, but when I link on every page, the experience is very similar. Whether I'm trying to find a small group, find a service time, get information about the kids program, whatever it is I need, the experience on each of those pages is very consistent. So I'm going to go back a page. It reduced confusion and it cut through the noise because there's one central hub that has extreme consistency and clear communication. So here it's engaging because as a congregant, I'm coming through that front door and I am immediately engaged by the simplicity and consistency of its message. The link is here. So if anyone later in the post-webinar email would like to peruse this website and steal some ideas, I encourage you to do it. It's a great church, and tell them that we sent you, and I'd love to have their business, but it's just a great website. So I would like to praise things that are in our community, even if they're not our clients or customers. So we're going to move on from engagement and talk about connecting. Let's fast forward and pretend like we engaged people so well that now they want to connect. You engaged me immediately, and now I say, man, this is the place for me. I need to be needed and known. One of my favorite pastors said this a long time ago, and it is so simple, but it has stuck with me for years. Everyone needs to be needed and known. I don't think I'd ever asked myself that, but I would say that that's very true. I need to know that I have a place, and that if I don't show up to my place, someone noticed my absence. And in our churches, it's very easy to come in and leave and not be noticed. And honestly, the pandemic did a fantastic job of making us invisible. So rather than just saying, well, we don't know what to do about that, and begging people, come back to church, they are coming to church. It just might be on a mobile app or a live stream or on their computer screen. People are still engaged and attending. Are we giving them an opportunity to connect in new ways? So if everyone needs to be needed and known, this is important. Because of that disconnection, it's harder and harder for people to reconnect. So we want to use technology to make that really, really easy for them. And how do we do that? Again, I'm going to go back to this exact same church website. What I love about this church website is it is so simple. The options to get connected are so easy to find. Again, it's really consistent and familiar to what I've already seen in the previous navigation. It's all a centralized system. So every form that I click on, I have the exact same experience, whether I'm giving my donation, signing up for a small group, or volunteering at a service project. The experience is exactly the same. So I'm using that central hub for everything. I'm not confused. Hey, where did I sign up for that? Where was the confirmation for that other thing? It's just all in the exact same place. So I'm not confused. that reduces my hesitancy to jump in. And it's creating this culture of inclusion. Because when I came to this website, I saw needs and opportunities. So I immediately thought, man, I could do that. I could jump in. I have that skill set. I have that passion. They made it so easy for me to want to be connected and show me that there is a place for me to serve. So I was engaged and now I'm connected. So we're going to flip to the complete backside of organizing. So we're going back to that bubble. We've already talked about the congregation. Man, they came to your front door on your website, your mobile app, or in person. They felt engaged. They realized there's a place for them to fit in. And you made it so easy for them to connect, sign up, participate. So now you've got all these people and all of this data. So now we're going to talk about your staff, because how do we manage this? We made it really easy for our community. Have we made it equally as easy and efficient for our staff? So data can inform our decisions and identify opportunities to meet the needs of our congregation along every step of a spiritual journey. I really love this bit because it's kind of weird. Sometimes churches kind of get maybe a bad rap of, oh, you're just all about the numbers. Absolutely, I'm about the numbers because that is data that informs my decisions about a human being who is on a spiritual journey behind that data point. And I want you to think about this, why it matters. Changes in measurable events like attendance and giving signify to you and to your staff, to your pastoral team, milestones or life changes. And those are opportunities to celebrate or meet the needs with pastoral resources. I'm going to pause and get a little bit personal and tell you just a tiny bit about my story. I've been in full-time ministry my entire life as a preacher's daughter and then as a worship pastor's wife. I was not employed by the church, but I led worship for 15 years on stage, very visible, extremely plugged into my church. And 2 years ago, I went through a divorce and I kind of was separated from my home, from my church. My daughters and I didn't attend the same location. My tithing dropped, obviously, to that location. So that data should have informed a team of staff members or pastors. Hey, here's this person who has attended faithfully for 15 years, who has given and increased their giving year over year over year. And we saw a change. We saw a decline. And the same example could go with growth. We saw an uptick in generosity. Either way, something happened in this person's life. What are we going to do about that? And that should trigger some kind of a pastoral response to meet a physical or spiritual need, or to celebrate a milestone, to build up a giver, to plug someone into a leadership position. It doesn't really matter. And I'm sure you can imagine a number of situations that are applicable here. But using that data, not just to count the numbers, but to measure actionable events so that we as church leaders and as pastors can say, there's something's going on there. And that should trigger a series of actions to connect with the person behind that number. If we are not collecting that data, we are missing opportunities to meet spiritual needs. So here's how. That all sounds good, but literally, how do we do that, right? And we do that through what's called a ChMS, or a church management system. I don't want to make the assumption that everyone today actually has that or knows what it is. Many of you might, but in case we don't, a church management system is where we organize all of this data. This is just a screenshot. There's so much more behind here, but this is the backend system. And I say system singularly because it really can be one system, one login, one password that can organize all of your members, your congregants, the human interactions that walked into your door or logged onto your live stream or connected with your mobile app. And this is where we know who they are and what are they doing? Did they attend a service? Did they come to the women's breakfast? Did they serve at the men's event? Do they have children? all of this activity, we can monitor that in the ChMS. And then more importantly, we can connect. We can add people into groups and workflows based on what our team has focused on. This is our cultural vision. So we saw a decline in giving or attendance, workflow. We saw an increase in someone's, how much they've been coming to this campus, workflow. And when I say workflow, these are automated, perhaps if you want to, emails, phone calls, text messages. This doesn't have to be manual. These technologies, we are going to leverage them to make this easier on our staff, make us more efficient, so that at the end of the day, we can actually be stewards of people, good stewards of relationships. I love the word steward, especially in finance. That's my background is nonprofit fundraising. So I think about stewardship in a very practical way. But now I see that through a very different lens of I get to steward people and their relationships with our churches, which is really their relationship with Christ. If we can be good stewards of that, man, what else can we do to fulfill our mission? So that's where the secret sauce is behind the scenes, actually organizing things so that we can be better stewards of people and ultimately lead them to Jesus. I know that I'm oversimplifying this, so I really want to kind of go really, really practical. No matter where you are kind of in this tech overload, I don't know what to do. We've got too many systems. I don't know where to begin. I do have some suggestions. The very first place to begin is inventory, which I know sounds kind of horrible, but if we could all go back to our office, to our staff, and take inventory, assuming you don't already, maybe you are 5 steps ahead, which is awesome, but take inventory of what systems do we have in place today and what are their features and purposes. Identifying the redundancies in there might surprise you. For instance, our giving platform also is an unlimited form system. So we eliminate the need for things like event signups, even like volunteer signups, anything where you need to collect or manage a response to something like an event or a picnic, even things that don't result in a monetary transaction like a prayer request. That's just a form. All of that is completely free inside of our giving system. And that's just an example. You may have something similar, but you think of that, oh, that's where we do our online giving. So we signed up for this other event system. And before you know it, you've got 2 systems, 2 subscription costs, 2 logins. We're adding to that tech stack because we didn't have a good inventory of what we already have and what are the full capabilities of what we have before we go buy something else. Which leads to number 2. If you do not have a procurement policy, I would encourage you to get one. And all that means is before someone on your staff signs up for a software, whether it's free or not, what is the review process to see, do we really need this? Because see, number 1, we might already have that and just didn't know it. If you do need it, are the right staff members fully trained so that they know the full capabilities of this software so we don't just repeat the same problem later down the road? And lastly, I would encourage everyone to build relationships with your vendors. So in this case, I'm a vendor. I love it when churches call me and say, hey, we got a sales email from this other company and they're saying this. That sounds really good. Can we talk about that? And I don't just mean like, hey, can we compare our prices? It's number 1 and number 2. That sounds like it does a little bit more. And I will be the first one to say that is a better use of your funds. And that's a great system. Or, hey, you actually already have that. Can I show you where you can maximize what you already have before you go purchase something else, allowing us to be better stewards of our finances, use the tools we have, reducing the stuff that we don't need, which reduces the confusion for our congregation. And again, like allows us to all meet the unique needs of our community when they are bombarded with so much outside information. We actually want to streamline that. And as boring as it sounds, the best way to do that is to start with how many different systems are we using to communicate to our congregation, giving them an opportunity to connect to our mission So thinking back to the image of the guy with all the emails pouring out of his computer, if that's what we feel like, that's what our congregants feel like. As a mom, I'm getting emails every day from my kids' school, from gymnastics, from work, from my family. So if my church is sending me really good message, it's part of the noise. And that's a message I want to receive. So I'm hoping that my church staff is using intentional communication and intentional softwares so that I hear their message. So I'm already engaged and I really want to connect. So it has to be really, really simple. And that is honestly it. I really want to be respectful of time. I know that I've oversimplified everything, but if nothing else, I would love for everyone to go back and look at how many systems do I have? Do I have too many? We, of course, would love to help you do an audit and tell you, hey, you actually already have that. You don't need to buy anything else. There are so many great providers that will do that, and they should. So number 3, if your vendor is not helping you do that, make them. We need to figure this out. I've got too much stuff and I need to get rid of at least 5 of these things today. How do I do that? So I am going to pause there. I don't know if we have questions or want to go back into anything with a little bit more detail, but I am happy to pause right there.
Kacie, thanks. No, actually, I think that was fantastic. I do have some questions for you. Obviously, there's a lot of different systems that are out there that ministries are using. What do you find is one of those core systems that you see are probably, because we do have ministries that probably aren't out there getting all the fancy stuff. So what are some of the things that you find help to build that engagement and that connection?
I love that you asked that. I think that's kind of what makes me sad sometimes when I feel like churches, especially when they're just getting off the ground, compare to what I call a name brand church, maybe a larger church that has a lot more resources and a lot more staff. So they've got all these things. So maybe small to medium-sized churches think that they need a lot more than they do. You really, really don't. You need a great, clean website. And that does not have to be expensive at all. So a really good website, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, giving is critical. We are all nonprofits at the end of the day. And if we do not have a way to receive generosity, our doors are going to close pretty quickly. So website is big. Giving is next. To me, the giving and ChMS, that people management system, those go hand in hand. Ours are integrated. They're literally one and the same. You kind of can't really have one without the other because they are so important. So you can grow into that. So website, giving, ideally people management. From there, we like to build with churches as they grow. The other thing that I would say is kind of a non-negotiable that is outside is background checks. Mm-hmm. That is separate. It can integrate into your database as well, but that is something that's a whole different TED Talk, but every church should be doing basic background checking on every single staff member and volunteer. Today, that's just kind of a non-negotiable.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because I've taken courses at the Disney Institute and they have their keys of excellence. And you want to think that what's Disney's number one? And they would say their number one is safety, right? And so you don't think of it, we don't see them from that, but internally they do. So I think background checks are really important for ministries to think about. And then organizing volunteers. A lot of churches are done through volunteers. So how do we bring them, onboard them, and get people engaged, needed and known? I love that because I think that's so important.
And for background checks, it's important to, I think people go, oh, we don't want to do that. We help you through a background check, identify an opportunity to have a conversation, not an immediate, oh, something came up, this person cannot serve. I'm not telling you that you can't have that, but for us, our biggest goal is, hey, something is here that deserves a conversation. And then it's really up to each church to have a policy of based on X, we decide Y, based on A, we decide B. But ideally, that's never just to across the board say you can't serve here. Right. It's an opportunity to have a conversation.
Yeah. The connection part, and I know when I look at how do we connect with people in systems, right? There's so many different ways to communicate. And I think it's really important for ministries to understand what is the best way to communicate with their people, right? Because different groups communicate in different ways. And I know from, just as you mentioned, all of the youth things that your kids are doing, from work emails to all the different texts that you get, it's making sure, how do you navigate through and communicate through that? Are you seeing there's a form of communication that is kind of taking off more in your world than others?
Well, it goes back and forth, right? It was email and then it was text.
Yep.
And the legislation around both of those actually changes so often. About a year ago, there was a huge change in text communication where it's called carrier filtering. And not to go on yet again a different talk, but the cell phone carriers were working with the government to reduce the amount of spam. So we saw a huge shift in a lot of messages getting blocked in a good attempt to protect people from spam, but they were actually messages they had opted into from a place that they wanted to get communication from. So honestly, this is part of the problem. I didn't say it at the beginning. The biggest problem is there's too many systems. The secondary problem is they change so darn fast.
Yep.
So having a vendor who specializes in this can stay on top of not just the speed at which technology changes, but the legality that's involved as well. And my dad's a pastor, and he is not a tech genius. He's not a website manager. The man does not even have social media. So as a pastor, I want him to have partners who understand your job is not to be a tech genius. It's to be a pastor.
Right.
Let us do that so that you can do that. And that's where that partnership is involved. So there is not one, because it changes every 5 minutes, but that's kind of what we do.
Yeah, for sure. The organized side, when you brought that up, I know my church has child dedications coming up this weekend, right? So when you think about that, I don't have kids that are getting child dedication, but what a great opportunity, a life stage for families to not only just connect with them during the child dedication, but now you actually realize you have a lot of information on those people that signed up for it. And you can continue to reach out to them, especially as churches grow and they're in that growth mode. It's how to make sure that you're still being intimate with people. And I think organizing that information is really important, because everything from child dedications to baptisms to the giving side, right? A new giver, someone that's increased their giving in some way, all those things become data points of way to engage with people in a real way and in a personal way. And I think that is a important part, because churches, the ones that are doing it right, are growing because they're making those personal connections.
And that's what we're so desperate for. That's kind of the point of this entire thing, is we've lost this authenticity. And I think we are desperate for it, but it's like we don't know how to be human again. We want our communities back. We want our social circles, but it's weird. So how much more of an opportunity to be the body of Christ and actually meet people in this weird post-pandemic? We don't know how to talk to each other. It's strange. So we have to be the ones that kind of lead by example and not let people fall through the cracks, but they absolutely will if we're not tracking them. I don't mean that in a creepy big brother track them kind of way, but if we're not capturing their data, they will slip out the back door and we won't even notice. Yeah.
Yeah. And as much as, happy birthdays are nice, right? And so it's people knowing that it's your birthday and reaching out to you is a key part, and it's making sure how to do it and do it in an authentic way. And that's where the churches can do it in a unique and authentic way. And I think that's the cool part, is any of those type of things, that information, using it in that way.
Well, when you use a ChMS and workflows, you can get really creative. So, hey, if I know it's your birthday, and if I know you had baptism, like, you can get really creative to set certain amounts of time, or you kind of know when certain events happen in a person's life. Mm-hmm. So think about a birthday, but then what about the thing that most people wouldn't say? And then you get that from your church. Like, well, how did they know that? Yeah. They thought to measure it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think those are and that's where creativity can come with that data, right? Yeah. Is how to use the data in a way that you can get creative and do some really cool reach outs. Exactly. And Yeah, that's the fun part. Data can be very boring. So how do you make it fun? And those are the brainstorming sessions of, hey, let's make this fun. What cool things can we do?
Well, that's where you bring your media team, your communications team into this back end database where you wouldn't think to combine those teams.
Yeah.
Please do. That's one of the first things I see. If I only see the financial secretary on the back end system, I'll say, hey, let's not go any further. Who's the communications? Who does your stage communication? Who does your website? Do you know how many good things are in there? It's not your job. That's them. Let's add them to this account. And that's how that you end up adding different systems because the wrong people aren't connected. So yeah, make data fun. Make your creative team get on that account.
Yeah. And there's so many events that you don't realize the outreach you're doing in your communities, everything from harvest festivals to VBSs, where you see people for a very small period of time. And it's not, how do you connect to them? I know when we go to sign our kids into children's church, and all of a sudden we realize we have a list of kids, because if we bring our nieces or nephews with us or anything, and we're like, now how cool for a church to start reaching out to some of those, hey, haven't seen them in a while. How are they doing? Those type of things, right? Yeah.
Exactly. That's the and then what.
Yep.
That we don't often think about, but we can and should.
Yep. Very cool. Well, this was fun. As always, talking with you is great. And I just really appreciate your time today. And I know those that are watching this are going to appreciate that. One of the things I do want to point out is we've created an awesome partnership with Ministry Brands, specifically even with Easy Tithe. They're giving back to our members by reducing the total cost, and it's significant and appreciated. So I encourage anyone that's watching this as of today to go out, look on our website and find Easy Tithe on our website, and you can actually go straight there and sign up from that website with the landing page right on Easy Tithe. So big thanks to Kacie on getting that put together for us. Other things that we have going on is, one, we've realized ministries, we want to give back and we want to serve ministries. As ministries are saving money, we have actually put out a welcome CD for any ministries bringing money in. We will give a 3.25% interest rate for 7 months as of the recording of this. And so what we know is high inflation market, what we see out there, and we're trying to make sure we can have ministries be more effective with what they do. One, I think in our partnership, it's all about giving back, and we want to give back to ministries. So Kacie, thank you for your time today. I look forward to talking many more times on Ministry Advisory Council, and have an amazing day and an amazing weekend.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.